your Superman news video for the week September 19th to September 25th, 2014. Our top news stories in this week's Speeding Bulletin include: the Supergirl TV series gets a commitment from CBS, Harry Lennox brings up The Dark Knight Returns again, and we're giving away a Superman and Supergirl Zentai bodysuit adult costume. Let's check out these stories and more in this week's Speeding Bulletin. In movie news, filming for Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice continued across this past weekend at the vacant Michigan Central train station, with helicopters, explosions, smoke and lots of bright lights keeping locals interested throughout the nights. Although he couldn't say much, Harry Lennox, who will be returning to play the role of General Swanwick in Batman v Superman, spoke with MoviePhone.com about the upcoming film. He said, "Anybody who's a fan of the '86 graphic novel The Dark Knight Returns, I think will be well pleased by that." According to RealChicago.com, production on the movie will head to Yorkville, Illinois to start filming at the reconstructed Kent farmhouse during November for a period of 2 weeks. It would therefore be expected that Diane Lane would be on location to return to her role as Martha Kent during that time period. Even though Jason Momoa still won't confirm whether he's being cast as Aquaman in the upcoming movie, rumours still persist that Aquaman will appear in Batman v Superman, and that he actually made an appearance in Man of Steel, although in an unseen role. This speculation of Aquaman's involvement in Man of Steel has been a theory fans have been throwing up for months now, so it's no surprise that schmoesknow.com included it in this week's edition of a Meet the Movie Press video, which in turn has spread to other news media. Remember, it's just a rumour at this point in time. Hang on to your hats. And while news from the set grew quieter towards the end of this week, Henry Cavill was spotted on location in Detroit, Michigan, walking his dog, which he named Kal-El. In TV news, CBS has agreed to pick up the live-action Supergirl TV series pitched by DC Entertainment and the Flash TV series executive producer Greg Berlanti. The hour-long drama will centre on Kara Zor-El, Superman's cousin, who was born on the planet Krypton and escaped amid its destruction years ago. Since arriving on Earth, she has been hiding the powers she shares with her famous cousin, but now at age 24 she decides to embrace her superhuman abilities and be the hero she was always meant to be. The show is expected to air on CBS in 2015. As we turn our attention to the comic book world this week, we reviewed a number of Superman related comic books, and starting off with Supergirl Futures End #1, which was reviewed by James Lant, who gave it a 4 out of 5, saying, "Even if it has moments that seem borrowed from Twilight, this entry in Future's End was an entertaining book of the highest level." Adam DeChannel reviewed Smallville Continuity Chapter 4, saying, "Brian Q. Miller delivers a fantastic issue and a Superman to be proud of," and he gave this chapter a 5 out of 5. Justice League United Futures End #1 and Justice League Futures End #1 were both reviewed by Michael J. Petty, who said, "I enjoyed these 2 issues and I hope to see more exciting stories from the Justice League in the future." Superman comics available this week from September 24th include Adventures of Superman #17 print edition, Injustice Gods Among Us Year 2 #12 print edition, New 52 Futures End #21, Superman Doomed #2, which is available in a variant cover, Superman Futures End #1, which is available in a lenticular cover, Smallville Continuity Chapter 5 digital comic will be available September 26th, and Infinite Crisis Chapter 20 digital comic will be available September 28th. Halloween is quickly creeping up and Superman is always a favourite when it comes to dressing up. Go all out and get yourself a Superman Grand Heritage Man of Steel costume for $170.67. And you'll definitely want to get this awesome Superman candy holder and bowl for $32.51. These and other great Superman Halloween items are available from your one-stop Superman shop, the Superman homepage online store at supermanhomepage.com/shop. And in other news, as you know, the Superman homepage hosts a live radio Kal-El broadcast every week for Superman fans to come chat on air about the Man of Steel. This week, Michael Bailey and I were thrilled to be able to chat live with Lauren Agostino and Andrew Newberg, the authors of the new book Holding Kryptonite. If you missed the show, then shame on you, but don't worry, you can listen back to the hour-long interview at supermanhomepage.com/live. Thanks to purecostumes.com, the Superman homepage is pleased to be able to give away a Superman Supergirl Zentai bodysuit adult costume. To enter the contest, you simply need to answer the question presented on the contest page, submit your entry, and you'll be entered into the draw to win the Superman Supergirl costume. so come to the site now to enter. Episode 117 of Radio Kal, the monthly podcast of the Superman homepage, is now available to listen to. In this month's podcast, Scotty and I discuss all the latest news on the Batman v Superman filming in Detroit, a stormtrooper stealing the Batmobile, the Supergirl TV series, Justice League animated miniseries, all the latest Superman-related comic books, Injustice Year 3, new Superman coins from Royal Canadian Mint, Lois Lane young adult novel, Holding Kryptonite book, and much more. I also interview young up-and-coming artist Bean about her song titled Lois Lane. Check it all out at supermanhomepage.com/radio. Toronto teacher John Clark will run in this year's Scotia Toronto Waterfront Marathon dressed in a Superman costume to raise money for sick kids in the Toronto hospital. He's also out to break a Guinness World Record for running the fastest half marathon while dressed as a superhero. The marathon takes place on October 19th. We wish him well. In the Temple Israel Museum in Memphis, Tennessee is currently hosting an exhibition titled Superman, the Jewish Roots of America's Superhero. Temple Israel member Eddie Zeno has built a broad and meaningful collection of Superman memorabilia and artifacts that explore the influence of the Jewish experience on the evolution of Superman. The exhibition is currently on display in the Temple Israel Museum until December 31st. Comic book artist Jay Bone, who many may remember worked on the Super Friends comic book, took to Twitter in response to the idea that since Superman's powers are derived from Earth's sun, then perhaps his costume should be designed to allow him to absorb sunlight more directly, and he posted these illustrations you're seeing now. Unfortunately, Bizarro caught wind of the idea too. That's all the Superman news there was for weeks September 19th to September 25th. I'm Steve Younis from supermanhomepage.com.
Great Scott! Great Scott! Great Scott!
Hello everyone, and thanks for tuning in once again to another fine episode of Great Scott. I'm Scotty V, and thanks for watching. So, we've had a number of TV announcements, TV things going on, TV excitement in the comic book world happening over the last few months and weeks. Marvel got into TV, and apparently it was a big hit, even though I tried to watch S.H.I.E.L.D. I watched about 2 episodes, and I thought it was too silly and too goofy. So I stopped. I heard it got better, so maybe I'm going to try and get back to it. But the thing is, there's so many great things on TV, and for the most part, they're not comic book related, although we're coming into the TV age of comic books. For a while, people have been saying, God, aren't comic book movies all kind of washed out? Haven't we seen enough? Haven't there, what else can they do? Aren't they going to run off at some point? And they're still gangbusters. They're still huge. Everybody's still rushing to make one. And now we got the whole TV boom going on. I think Marvel is going to have a great thing happening once that Netflix deal goes on. I think they've already made the deal. They're just making the shows. Netflix can do great things on their thing. I guess it's a streaming service. I have it. I love it. And they released their whole season in one shot. House of Cards, great show. Very adult shows, very well-written shows, and they can take things as far as they want to. Now, you might figure a comic book show doesn't need to go that far because it should be for family audiences, but sometimes not. When you have a show like The Punisher or something like that, where you can really get into grittiness, and there's going to be some violence, and he's a hitman, and it's a serious thing, then maybe you don't need to make everything so family-friendly. For instance, I watched Gotham the other night when it premiered. We're in the week of the Gotham premiere, and even though this is a Superman homepage, I will talk a little bit about it. It was gritty and violent enough while still being on a regular network. It's on Fox, and I loved the show. I think that the death of Bruce Wayne's parents has never been showed in a more brutal fashion, which doesn't necessarily make it good, but it was very hard. It was much more difficult to watch. It was hurtful, it was brutal, and I found myself wondering, what did he kill them for? And we've all seen the story before, and we know how it goes, and we know that it eventually helped shape the man that Bruce will become. But this show is more about Gordon and Gotham before there was a Batman, even though Bruce is in the show and the relationship between the two characters is going to figure very prominently. It's also going to be about showing the formation of some of Batman's greatest villains, and this season is going to focus on the Penguin and his relationship with a made-up character for the show called Fish Mooney, played by Jada Pinkett Smith. I really enjoyed it. I mean, for me, I was taken back to 1989 when, at 14 years old, I saw a little movie called Batman by Tim Burton, starring Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson, and it's still, to this day, and probably will always be, the movie that I saw the most times at the theater. I remember going, I remember seeing it 7 times, I remember counting, I remember being proud of the fact that I saw it 7 times. I remember being excited and inspired, and I remember feeling heroic walking out, and I remember being ultimately and hugely disappointed when Batman Returns came out, and I realized it was all over. Because a big excitement for it was there, and then it just kind of let me down, and the rest of that series just went further and further down. And you know how I feel about the Nolan series. I think it's about heart and character and depth. I'm talking to a Batman fan recently who hates the Burton movie because it's so far from canon and it changes so many things, and Batman kills in the movie. And when you're 14, those kind of things, I didn't know that much about Batman canon, and I didn't care that much about the fact that the Joker didn't kill his parents or whatever. I thought it was neat that they had done it that way. And I wished they hadn't killed the Joker at the end, but I never looked at it as Batman killed him. I looked at it as Batman was hanging on for his life and didn't want the Joker to get away, so he tied him to the gargoyle and figured that the helicopter would stop and he'd be trapped there and the police would come or whatever. I don't think he thought it out. He was hanging there and he made a desperate attempt to keep the Joker around. And then the Joker ended up falling to his death. Unlike in Batman Begins, where he knows that Ra's al Ghul, who I guess isn't really Ra's al Ghul, is going to die and says, I don't have to save you, but I'm not going to help you. In that moment, he made the decision to allow him to die when he could have done something about it. I think that that's worse than an accidental death when trying to stop a criminal who had killed millions from getting away. But I loved Gotham. Watch it if you haven't. The other thing I wanted to continue up on, I started with last week, is Supergirl. When I recorded my show last week, it had been, we haven't been to the networks yet, so we don't know what's going to go on, but we'll let you know when we start to get something together. And a few hours later, CBS has picked up the show, and it's going to be on TV. It's going to be great. Now, I don't know how the ratings were for Gotham last night. I hope it did well. It's unusual that a regular network is able to pull off a genre show like this. Not because they can't write it, not because they can't do it, as proof by the pilot of Gotham. But I've seen a lot of good genre shows on networks that go away because the ratings just aren't good enough. I still talk to Smallville fans who say, oh, you didn't love Smallville like I did, but it's proof positive that it was great because it's the longest-lasting Superman story that's ever been on TV. And while that's true, I still say the reason for that is that it was on the CW, and on the CW, 2 million viewers is fantastic. 2 million viewers on Fox for this Gotham will not do it. It's hard to keep a show on when it's in the double digits millions. If it gets 10 million, it's going to be a bubble show. It's going to be a show they're going to have to try and rescue. It's going to be a show they're going to have to go to bat for. And Supergirl, I think, has an even smaller fan base and has an even smaller interest among comic book people, as I talked about on this week's radio Kal. A coveted demographic for the networks is females, 18 and younger and 18 and older, and it's very difficult to capture them because typically females don't care as much about genre shows. Females don't care as much about TV in general, and they don't care that much about movies. So the driving force a lot of times behind films, and it gets a lot of people mad because there aren't a lot of great women parts, is what will drive the men to see these shows and watch television and watch these movies, because we haven't been able to solve women. And I think it would be great if we could get a woman-driven show like Supergirl on television. I'll watch it, and I'm a man, and I know a lot of guys, Steve Younis and other people who are Superman fans and Supergirl fans will watch it. It's weird. It's going to be a 24-year-old Supergirl, and it's going to be on CBS. So 2 million's not going to cut it, 10 million's not going to cut it, and I just don't know if you can capture 15 or more million with a Supergirl show. She's a secondary character in Superman. I talked about this last week. But I would love it if we could. I think that CBS might have been the wrong way to go, just like I think Fox is a difficult way to go with Gotham. But Fox has had a little bit better time with horror shows and genre shows and sci-fi shows than any of the other networks. So let's see what happens. I'm excited. I'm excited about the ongoingness of Gotham. I love the episode. I didn't want it to end. And I hope I can be this excited about Supergirl for years and years to come. I hope it stays on. I think there needs to be some involvement with Superman, and I don't know how they're going to do that. I was thinking about it today, and the Kents were a prominent force in her life in many of the incarnations. She lived with the Kents. She learned from the Kents, much like Clark did. She learned from Clark. She trained with Clark. At some point, she trains with the Amazons. All that stuff's not going to happen, I realize, but there's a lot of potential for cameos and pieces, and I think Ma and Pa Kent could have a prominent role on the show, but maybe they don't want to do that because Smallville did it for 10 years. But she went there, and she learned there, and she lived there, and she was protected and felt safe there. And if she's waiting till she's 24 to get started as Supergirl, I could see her doing that on the farm and honing things and being taught by the Kents and that kind of thing. And maybe Martha could have a heavier role in her formation. You know, it's usually Jonathan who has the role in these movies and things with Clark. And Martha's the only one around for the sequels to Man of Steel because they decided to kill off Jonathan again, which I hate when they do. But maybe it can be we can have some strong females on Arrow. There are some strong feminine presences. So far on Gotham, not as much, but Fish Mooney is female, and Gordon and Bullock's boss is female. So maybe we'll see some development there. But I'm liking where we're at. I'm liking the era that we're in. Lots of comic book movies all the time, and now lots of comic book television. Let's support it. Let's watch it. Let's keep it going. Thanks everybody for watching, and remember, tune in next week. Great Scott time. Great Scott channel.